Order a meeting of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights, regular meeting of May 9th, 2011. Would you stand please for a moment of silent reflection and salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mayor Enright.
Here.
Mr. Brennan.
Here.
Ms. Cynthia.
Here.
Mr. Dibber.
Here.
Ms. King.
Here.
Mr. Mechanico.
Here.
Mr. Vorbach.
Here.
This meeting is being held pursuant to the provision of the Open Public Meeting Law NJSA 10:4-6. Notice of this meeting was included in a list of meetings sent to the Co-Star in the Asbury Park Press, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building and on the borough's website. May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda?
Make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Yes, Fran, I'd like to add this resolution 82/2011 authorizing emergency repairs.
Okay, so we have, are you making that in the form of a motion? Did you?
Yes.
Yes. Could I have a second on amending the agenda? Okay, any discussion on the amendment? May I have a roll call, please, on the amending the agenda?
Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia.
Yes.
Mr. Dibber.
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes.
Mr. Mechanico.
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach.
Yes.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the amended agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion? May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brennan.
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia.
Yes.
Mr. Dibber.
Yes.
Ms. King.
Yes.
Mr. Mechanico.
Yes.
Mr. Vorbach.
Yes.
Okay, this evening I was asked to include a presentation in this by Mrs. Amy Toman from the Girl Scouts of America. Amy, where are you? If you'd like to come up to the microphone with your girls, if you want. This is so cute. I hope you brought a camera. Oh, good. Would you state your name, please, and address?
Amy Toman. I'm on Pitney Drive in Spring Lake Heights. Good evening, I'm Amy Toman, and I'm the leader of Girl Scout Troop 1517, and this is Lori McBride, my co-leader. Our troop is based at St. Catherine's School, and it's composed of 20 fourth grade girls from 6 towns, but the largest percentage of our scouts are from Spring Lake Heights, where Lori and I live. We're here tonight to express our appreciation to our town for the generosity and hospitality shown to our troop during the past 3 years. Most of those great experiences have come through our use of the Spring Lake Heights Community Center. We've been lucky enough to use that building for many events, from meetings to our annual holiday party to our recent CSI session. When planning those events, we've experienced nothing but friendliness and professionalism from the administration and staff. Even after that CSI session, after which I worked for an hour and a half trying to mop up plaster of Paris dust, which I now realize pretty much will be there forever, I never heard a word of complaint from anyone. We've also used the space to do some community service projects. Last November, we participated in Operation Christmas Child, in which we decorated and packed shoe boxes with Christmas gifts for children around the world. And in March, we used the community center to write out labels for the almost 400 boxes of Girl Scout cookies that were donated to us and we had sent to soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. And we actually got feedback on that with a picture of a team of people who were working with the Army Corps of Engineers, and there was a big picture of one of Hussein's palaces in the back. Our local council, the Girl Scouts of the Jersey Shore, recognizes the generosity we've been shown by the town. They've given us to present to you, the representatives of Spring Lake Heights, this Regional Good Neighbor Award, which is given for support and dedication to the Girl Scouts in the community. We hope you'll appreciate it, with lots of thanks from our troop.
Well, thank you. You were presented to the clerk.
No cookies?
I have 3 or 4 cases left if you want.
Amy, thank you very much, and girls, we really appreciate this, and we're very happy that you use the community center. It couldn't be put to a better use. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're proud of you.
Get a picture. Yeah.
Does the mayor want to come down?
Sure, absolutely.
You're a Girl Scout, right?
Yeah, right. A long time ago.
You still have your sash?
Move it, move it. Okay, thank you girls again. Did you get it? Okay,
Great,
good.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone, bye. Okay, the next thing is I have a proclamation to read, which has to be read every year for click it or ticket, when the police are going to be on the watch for seat belts and all. And in order for the police to get the grant to do this, to pay overtime and all that from the state, we need to read this proclamation by law. Whereas there were 554 motor vehicle fatalities in New Jersey in 2010, and whereas a large percentage of the motor vehicle occupants killed in traffic crashes were not wearing a seatbelt, and whereas use of a seatbelt remains the most effective way to avoid death or serious injury in a motor vehicle crash, and whereas the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that 135,000 lives were saved by safety belt usage nationally between 1975 and 2000. And whereas the state of New Jersey will participate in the nationwide click it or ticket seatbelt mobilization from May 23rd to June 5th, 2011, in an effort to raise awareness and increase seatbelt usage through a combination of enforcement and education. And whereas the Division of Highway Traffic Safety has set a goal of increasing seatbelt usage rate in the state from the current level of 93.73% to 100%. And whereas a further increase in seatbelt usage in New Jersey will save lives on our roadways. Therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and Borough Council of Spring Lake Heights declares its support for the click it or ticket seatbelt mobilization both locally and nationally from May 23rd through June 5th, 2011, and pledges to increase awareness of the mobilization and the benefits of seatbelt use. Okay, so it's official now, so watch out, May 23rd, be careful. Okay, I just have a few things tonight in my report. I think everybody might know that the spring concert at the school is on May 18th at 1:45, if anybody'd like to go. We're having Youth Government Day on the 25th, if anyone would like to come. It's held here. Children from the 7th and 8th grade take over the job of the mayor, council, lawyers, everybody. And they actually have a council session on their own, and it's wonderfully done. And they usually come up with some wonderful ideas for us, things that they think we need to do here in town. And after that, the police treat them to lunch at the mill. And everybody's invited. I think you got something tonight. And that's going to be on the 25th. The one other thing I just wanted to mention, just so people are aware, I went to a meeting of the mayors locally the other morning, and at that time Sean Golden was there, and Sean Golden told us what is happening with dispatch. They've talked about county dispatch forever, and nothing has happened. Well, as of June 1st, the county is taking over the senior center in Neptune on Route 33 near the hospital, and between June 1st and September 1st, they were going to furnish that as a dispatch center. September 1st, they will be asking 10 communities along the shore to have their dispatch out of that area. We stand a good chance, from what I understood, of being one of the ones going there through Belmar. Then in 2013, all county dispatch will be, for towns who want to, will be coming out of a centralized building, which they just broke ground for, on Hospital Road. I guess is that actually War?
Yes.
Hospital Road, yeah. And they said they just broke ground there, and in 2013, if it finishes on time. So as of September, if that's on time, some towns will be, their dispatch will be coming out of Neptune for the county. But as of 2013, the whole county, if that, for towns that want to, will be coming out of that Hospital Road, and this is supposed to drop the cost of dispatch quite a bit. I think that's what I have tonight. Committee reports, Councilman Brennan. None. Councilwoman Cynthia.
We're voting on the budget tonight, which is a 0 tax increase. We're finalizing that, and then we also have the salary and wage ordinance, which is a 0 wage salary increase. Actually, I think it's a little lower because we eliminated a few positions, a few stipends, so that's been going on tonight.
Councilman Dibber.
Yes, just a couple of things. Obviously, we are moving forward on the courts, as we discussed earlier. And also, I'm pleased to announce that Mayor Enright has signed off on the new shared service agreement with Seeger for the roll-off truck. I want to thank Art Herner, who's here tonight, for all his help in that. He was great. And absolutely, it's a great savings for us. It prevents us from having to spend $150,000 for a roll-off truck for recycling, when we can just borrow one day a week and take care of our needs. So again, I appreciate Art Herner, I appreciate the folks in Seabury for all their help in making this happen. And that's it.
Councilwoman King.
The only thing that I have tonight is this resolution that we have to move forward on due to an emergency situation. And I did ask Art Herner if he could be here tonight to just give us a little quick summation of what has taken place, if you would, Art.
This just came together today, that's why I didn't give it, or wasn't able to give you a better notice. But essentially, in our annual inspection of our lift station, the Shore Road lift station, they couldn't close the gate valves, so they couldn't do the inspection. What the gate valves essentially is, you have water in your house, and you have a valve before your meter that shuts off the water. We also have one in the street. Well, if your house started flooding, and we weren't able to shut off those valves, we couldn't necessitate the repairs to stop the leak, and you would flood and overflow. Only in this situation, you know, that in water we could always shut down the street. We can't shut down the sewage. This is a lift station sewage. A lift station lifts sewage from a low point near a pond to a higher point where gravity takes over, and it runs into your system on gravity into the submersible. So in order, if anything were happening to these pumps, they couldn't shut it off and to make necessary repairs. So that's why the first thing last week, I had a meeting with the people, and already, yes, this has to be done. I got a letter from the company, got a letter from our license operator saying it was an emergency situation. Gave it to Colleen. Colleen was out sick and maybe at conference, I believe, last week. I was off Friday, so I put it with a note on Colleen. We got together today, and it worked really fast with the help of Rick, our clerk, and Joe May was there. Everything just clicked. We got everybody, we got all the necessary, because first we had to establish this emergency. Number two, where are we going to fund it? Is it a capital improvement? It doesn't have to come out of the fund. Now, it's $12,000, and you're voting on the budget tonight, not something I want to just throw it in and take out of the budget, but it's got to be done. So that's why it's thrown in your lap tonight at the last minute, and we determined it is a capital improvement and it is an emergency in our eyes. Hopefully you'll see that and we can move forward with it. And then they have to inspect it and see what we have.
Okay. Does council have questions?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay, go ahead.
Who does the repairs? We don't do it, do we?
Pumping services.
Pumping service?
Yeah. They've been doing it for years. They do most of the time.
And that labor's in this 12,000?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. And the rental of what they'll do is they'll bring in a truck and they'll set up a temporary lift station using a bypass, and that'll serve as a lift station while they're making the necessary repairs. And you might say, well, you know, you could do that. Let's say the pumps fail, and we could do that at any time. So you don't need to do it right now, but we can't pick when it's going to happen. In inclement weather, on a weekend, at night, and I'll guarantee that's probably when it is going to happen. Jacking up the price, so it's better to have the control at the lowest cost possible and make the necessary repairs. Because it's just it is a large, large fine if we let sewage go into rec pond.
Oh,
We don't want to do that when we have the ability to stop it, and that's our concern.
When you mentioned to see what we have at the end of your little talk, what do you mean by that?
Well, they weren't able to do the inspection. I would anticipate that once these valves, then they'll do the inspection of the lift station, the annual 20-point inspection.
Okay, so there may be problems with the lift station. and
Yeah,
whatnot,
yeah, well,
but we
there
won't
are a
know
lot of.
until we get a bypass and we.
Yeah, well, like Black Creek, they were able to do it, and there's a PO in here for an impeller. Impeller is a wear part. We did pumps 2 on Shore Road, 2 on, number 2 on Black Creek. We did that a couple years ago. In fact, we funded it in 2009, 2010. And so now we have pump 1. So I'm assuming that Shore Road will probably be the same situation since we put the pumps in at the same time.
Okay.
How many pumps do
years
we
ago.
have?
There's 4 pumps.
Oh, that's
There's a
it.
lead and a
Okay,
lag
okay.
in 2 different lift stations. And then we have another issue coming up with the Fairway Muse lift station. There are some problems there. We're getting the numbers together. Again, that would be a capital improvement project. I don't know where we stand with that yet, but that's out there. I just want you to know that.
That's not included in this,
No,
Okay.
it's separate, but
but we're gonna have to.
it's
do
coming in. I'll have plenty of time to sit down and talk to you before.
Okay.
And I do apologize for throwing it at the last minute.
That's okay, Artie.
It just kind of happened today, so.
And Colleen, you're comfortable with the way the money's going?
Yes. Well, I have a question with regards to the fact that the estimate does state this is just an estimate, and it could be more.
That's
And then in order,
It's a quote based on the work that we've done. Anything's unforeseen, but I would think that's a good price.
so, you know, because it costs us to get that money, the capital, I mean, it costs, what, $600 or?
Well, one of the things
$600
that
just to
Art
get the
just-
money that we have in the savings account. Amazing, isn't it?
And as Art just mentioned, he has another issue going on at Fairway Muse, so that's why I wanted to have the time that he could get those numbers together, because it does cost us to do a capital ordinance, so I'd rather do all of that together, so that way we're just doing it at the one
Okay.
time, and that's what he's working on now.
Okay, all right.
Any other question for Artie?
It may encompass more than the 12.
Right.
Right,
Right,
which
I
of
want
course
you
you'll
to
be
know.
aware of before we do it.
And
We
the
just wanted to-
monies that are incurred are advertising costs, legal costs?
Right,
Tom?
Yeah, Art, so you did a station in 2009, 2010,
Yeah, 1 pump in each.
1 pump in each. Then you have this issue right now, and then maybe Fairway Muse. What about the 4th station? Is that
Well, the 4th station, we
is that
have over.
older? Just to kind of get a sense.
Well, we have 4 stations. Shore Road, which are our main stations. We have the little one we took over from Fairway Muse a number of years ago. And then we have one for a singular house at the Jack Sterner house, I'll call it, the Sterner house. And up on Old Mill Road. The house was built lower than the road. It's a 1 unit, we just replaced that, so
Okay, so
we shouldn't have
worry
any
about that.
problems.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah. We should be good at it.
Any other questions for Artie? Artie, thank you for coming.
Okay.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Art.
Sarah, you finished?
I'm finished.
Okay. Councilman Mechanico? Councilman Borbeck?
Nothing.
Could I have a motion, please, to open the first voice of the public on any business?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Anyone have questions for us, or this is on any business?
We got some.
Would you go to the microphone, please, and state your name and address?
Good evening. My name's John Laspina.
Please speak up, please.
John Laspina, Laspina, owner of Johnny Babe's Taxi. Okay, 39 Union Avenue, Mass. In regards to the new taxi ordinance which you want to pass, we had a meeting with a few of the taxi owners in the area, and we found a lot of discrepancy in the ordinances where you're requiring for all owners that have licenses in the area to obtain another license here to pick up our calls in this town. And we are allowed to go anywhere and pick up our calls. We don't need another license. in this town. I personally already had a license in this town, and it was never enforced. That was the first license that you already abolished, okay? I already paid for a license. We had no protection with the license, and nothing was enforced because the police department never had the opportunity to enforce it because they said they were too busy. So we have the same problem here with everything that's in this ordinance, that who's going to enforce this ordinance if we do buy a license in this town? And the only place you're going to be able to put a taxi stand in this town is in front of the porch. It's the only place where you would require a taxi stand, which would be right in front where you have your handicap parking. So you'd be blocking off the handicap parking in front of the porch. You can't put a taxi stand in Doolin's, and nobody's going to be on the road in front of Doolin's stopping to pick up people. You can't put one in Spring Lake Manor. People are already going there to pick up here. What do we have? We have the St. Stephen's, and that's two little parking places where you pull in, pick up your passengers, and pull out. And you also have one over at the Wines Inn. That's all your restaurants. And you can't see it any other place where you'd have a taxi stand. And then they say they want to put in a, at any time, just set up a taxi stand. Well, what happens to us licensed operators in the area when we're going to pick up our customers that we dropped off? So, you know, we have to, I think we should have gone or had a meeting with the council prior to making a resolution and go over some of the questions from the other taxi owners, some of them locally, but the ones that are working in the area. And this way we can put something together. So I'd like to see this table until we have a chance to sit down and not just push something through that won't be enforceable. Thank you
Rich, do
very
you want to
much.
speak to this at all?
I would disagree that it's not enforceable. In terms of taxi stands, we do not have, per se, a taxi stand
Right.
in Spring Lake Heights at all, but the police can reserve the right to set up a temporary one if they felt it was necessary.
But there's only one place where you could set one up, and that's in front of the porch.
Why is that,
Everything else
Mr.
is
Linsky?
Why is that?
Because
Because of
everything else
space?
is private property. Dillon's is private property. You can't stop on the highway where they're gonna give you a ticket. Let's face it, nobody's stopping on the highway to pick up. You have,
Do you
Dillon's-
ever have someone from Doolin's call for a taxi cab service?
Of course,
And
constantly,
where do you pick them up?
on their property,
Okay.
okay? That's the same ones that pick up at Spring Lake Manor, on their property.
Understood.
Mr. Lespina, you don't think that it's inappropriate that the governing body of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights take necessary steps that we deem necessary for provide for the safety of our citizens and having background checks and proper checks with respect to licensures and insurances, et cetera, with respect to taxi companies that might be coming into our town and providing livery service to our residents?
This is the same, I'm totally with, I'm with you on
So,
that.
okay.
I'm already licensed in Belmar. All my drivers are also checked out in Belmar, okay? Now, Belmar hasn't been able to enforce their license. That's what I'm saying. The police departments do not bother with it. Not unless you had a zoning officer that wanted to be out there at night and on the weekends handling the situation.
So what you're saying is you are licensed in the town where your taxi cab office is, In Belmar.
Manasquan's my office.
or Manasquan?
I'm licensed in Belmar. I have a license in Belmar. And I also used to have a license here, but it was never enforced. That's what I'm saying. Maybe we should sit down, figure out, you know, an
But certainly you
ordinance.
understand that, you know, our
I-
concern is to protect the citizens of this town.
But
And
yeah,
as far
there's
as
still-
that's concerned, we have to have something in place. There is a discussion, in fact, there is some discussion concerning a council individual in Manasquan who wants to sort of do a shore taxi ordinance. which we are very interested in doing, but at the same time, we have to have something in place that protects our citizens. We want to know that our cab drivers are licensed. We want to know that they're insured. We want to know that they've been checked out, that their backgrounds are fine, and that they're properly licensed, with driver's licenses, etc.
Well, that's like in here, you're calling for a telephone number, you're not calling for the name of the company on the vehicle. There's a lot of things in this ordinance that does not apply to the safety of the residents, because you don't know who's picking them up, even if they have it. How do I know who's getting it if they have no name on the vehicle? Okay?
If they have our sticker on the vehicle, we know who they are.
Yeah, that person that gets in that car does
Again,
not
the
know
purpose of the
company.
license is that we know who they are.
Yeah, but if I'm getting in your cab, okay, and you have a medallion on your cab, the only thing I know, I got onto a cab, if there's no name on it, I wasn't in Swan's Taxi, I wasn't at Coast City, I wasn't in Johnny Bates. How do I know what company it is? If it just has a medallion on it?
I understand your concerns, but our concerns revolve around the safety of our citizens. We want something that protects our citizens. Now, if you want to participate in this, with this individual in Manasquan, the council person in Manasquan, to come up with a shore taxi ordinance, I am more than happy to do that with you and with that council person.
We're ready to go from Rio right up to,
That would be fine with me. That would be fine with me. I have no problem with that at all. But in the meantime, we want something on our books that protects our citizens, and that's what we're going to do.
Mr. Moschino, were you familiar with our previous ordinance?
yes,
Did you think that it was artfully done?
no.
Do you think this is artfully done?
To a certain extent, yes, and to a certain extent, no. And that's why I said there's certain things in here that are not enforceable. And there's certain things here. Okay, you have, what's the difference in between your limos and what's the difference in between your taxis? There isn't. You have nothing in here for limos. You only have for taxis. That's what I'm saying. This is why maybe we should have a meeting with mayor and council, or a couple of councilmen, a liaison. We go over the ordinance. We can put some input into it. And I think it'll work out better for everybody. And definitely, I think everybody should be licensed. And everybody should have a criminal check. We don't want to, we have enough problem picking up and young over they are. And this is happening all over the area. And they're cruising the side streets. And you know what's happening there with all the breaking entries. We have a lot of problems in the area. People are just jumping into cabs and getting out of the area. We know what's going on. That's why I said, we're not blind to it. We're just looking for something that's feasible for us and for the safety of the people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Sure. David Schneck, 302 C Street in Belmar. I'm the Libertarian Party candidate for Assembly this year. And over the next few months, I'm going to be sitting in on the city council meetings of every town in the district. I've been handing out flyers to some of the folks here. So just want to let everyone know I'll be available after the meeting. If anyone wants to sign my petition to help me get on the ballot, or if you have any questions, or if you want to yell at me or throw rotten fruit at me, I'll be available for that too. So that's it.
I'm sorry, what are you running for?
Assembly.
Assembly. Okay.
30th District.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak?
Yes, I will. My name is Tanya Smith, and I reside in Spring Lake Heights at Spring Lake Garden Apartments, and I represent Coast City as a general manager. And there are quite a few things that John spoke about. We all have the same concerns, and I think it might be not asking too much if we ask for a postponement so that all the area's owners of cab companies can get together and decide what we'd like to speak about and have a little more notice on what's going on with the ordinance as well. If I could bring up one point that really sticks out to me at this point is the fare for the local in Spring Lake, which is $1.50 per person.
we're not getting van loads of people or car loads of people. The majority of it is onesies and twosies. And if we do that at $1.50 per person, that's not even a gallon of gas. Never mind maintenance, insurance. Most and all of our people are licensed in Belmar and some in Seagirt as well. And I think adjoining the whole shoreline between Belmar and Brielle is a very good idea. Some of these things really need to be looked at before anything is passed.
Okay, thank you.
Where's Coast Cities located?
806 Route 71 in Spring Lake Heights.
Okay, and that was Mr. Henderson's previous,
He's the previous owner, Michael McGeary is the owner.
because I can recall that, were you familiar with the previous ordinance that we had on the books here?
No, I have to say no, I wasn't, because since I've been there, we've never had to have a license, and I'll be there 3 years in July.
Well, it was on the books. You may not have had the understanding that you had to have a license, but you had to have a license. And that ordinance came about 7 or 8 years ago, and I, in fact, drafted that ordinance based upon some other ordinances that were in circulation at the time. And I had taken the input from Mr. Henderson and several others. I don't recall Mr. Lespina. He might have been here for that hearing, but I do know that we didn't set fares.
Well, it's stated in the ordinance about
I mean, I think it's outrageous that we'd be setting fares.
Yeah, I think it's capitalism, personally, you know.
It wasn't in the other ordinance.
But as well, for 3 years when we didn't have it, we had to prove, you know, our licensing and everything else to get auto cab certificates through the town, through the clerk, so that we could be registered, and you guys had to know that we were insured. All of our drivers have to prove that's Belmar and or Seagirt. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, you need to protect the citizens, but at the same time, we need to protect our drivers and our employees at the same token. You know, they're here because they're either taking it as a second job because they're retired or because they need extra money for their family. And if they have to be licensed in every single town, that's an astronomical amount of money for people to have to pay, you know.
Yeah, I just think, I'm not gonna be voting in favor of setting fares.
Okay. But I would appreciate if maybe we could postpone this so that most of the owners in the local area can get together and speak about it, or maybe set up something with council and try to work out things for the ordinance on that level. I mean, I've spoken with the officer that's in charge of this a few times, and he's kind of lost in the process because he's done a lot of work on the ordinance, but he still doesn't know really what's going on. And I understand that things haven't been passed.
Have you checked into the, other areas where there's clusters of small towns like we have here on the shore, see whether or not there's any ordinances that have reciprocal rights?
No, there, as far as I understand, there isn't at all. You know, so we would kind of be the first, from what I understand, which I think is a good move.
I mean, if Belmar, so you're saying that your company and all your drivers are licensed in Belmar?
In Belmar,
And
and some of them are
you can
also,
demonstrably prove that to us?
by the beginning of Memorial Day weekend, absolutely, because that's their deadline to get licensed. I'm hiring new people. Some people only come back for summer. Absolutely, I could do that.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Tom?
Yeah, you know, in balancing out, I mean, obviously, the safety of the citizens is important, but is this ordinance, from your perspective, so restrictive that you couldn't operate economically? And the reason why I'm asking that is my concern is one town also deserves to have the option of taking a cab if they want to. If this is so onerous that it would drive cab companies away from town, you know, it might be harmful to our residents. So how do you feel about that?
I feel that economically, at this stage of the game, I mean, gas is outrageous, insurance is out, maintenance is, you know, I definitely think it would hurt people all the way around. And I think what we charge at this point is very reasonable. I don't think there's any reason to change anything.
What do you charge if you don't mind that?
From Spring Lake to Spring Lake, they charge $5. Spring Lake to Spring Lake Heights, $6. And I don't think that's unreasonable, really. You know, I understand that some people are, you know, within a fixed income, and maybe that's an idea for, because a lot of our people in the daytime are seniors. So maybe if something could be implemented for seniors, that might not be a bad idea. But even when we have raised prices,
Well, I just don't, personally, I don't see that, if we start getting into setting of rates, we're gonna have to be revisiting this thing every single
Constantly.
year. It's
Constantly.
we're not set up that way.
Right.
Are you, I'm not so familiar with the taxi laws statewide. Do you have a state license, or how does that work?
Yeah, he has to be licensed through the state, and that's a separate cost from
But
each
does this
town.
include background checks and so
Yes,
forth?
fingerprinting, background checks, and I understand where the medical thing comes in, but I don't think it should really apply for everybody. That's another cost. Half the people that work for us and that are in this industry, they don't have health insurance. So for them to go for a medical exam every single year is really asking a lot of them. I think that if they're in good health, that should be enough. I do understand.
Who determines
that.
they're in good health?
Well, I would think that they do. If they have to have an extra medical exam every year for each town, that adds up because each one isn't allowed.
But does the state demand a medical check?
No,
No?
no,
Do you
not
see
that I'm
But
aware of.
some of these requirements are redundant from the state level to here and from town to town. That's what I'm getting from you.
I agree. Like Seagirt, they have to have a medical exam. Belmar, you don't. So the people that are licensed in Seagirt have had medical exams, and usually those are the people with CDLs that have to have one anyway, but they can't carry it over. They have to get a separate medical exam. Same with the fingerprints, because they have CDLs, which you guys have addressed. You know, if they already have CDLs, they won't have to have the fingerprints done again. But I really don't see where it stands to reason. If they're healthy enough to have a driver's license, then they should be all right to go ahead and drive somebody else. I mean, if they're already going through the whole process of getting a license, a taxi license, I don't think that their medical background, other than if somebody had seizures or was a diabetic, should really come into play. It's really taking away from somebody trying to make a living if they can't afford to do that.
I wonder if there's any
Every
HIPAA
time.
issues with respect to that too.
I'm sorry?
HIPAA, do you know what HIPAA is?
No, I
Health
don't.
ins- it's,
Unfortunately, I'm
it's a,
ignorant on that.
it's a federal law actually that precludes disclosure with respect to certain conditions of health. And you have to have HIPAA releases and whatnot. I have a problem with having medical checks. Presumably, as an operator of a taxi company, you would, I presume, be liable. I'll tell you, I think you're liable if you hire somebody who is, you know, that you fail to.
As an accident, some sort of episode behind the wheel.
Exactly. I
Absolutely.
mean, you knew or could have had knowledge of. So I think you have your own self-interest to make sure that they are in proper health.
Mr. Mechanical has a question.
You may have answered this. Do you travel all Monmouth County, or?
We go everywhere and anywhere.
You brought Spring Lake to Spring Lake, like charge. Now, do you charge mileage as well?
No,
No.
we're
So you
non-metered.
gotta go
It's
from-
a zone, well, a
So
straight
if you went
fare.
from Spring Lake to Freehold, so
It's $29 for one person, $2 for any additional person unless it's a child under 80 pounds.
$29 for one person, $2 for additional?
Yes. Under
Okay.
80 pounds, we don't charge.
Any other questions? Sarah?
You said you are licensed in Belmar and your office is here in Spring Lake Heights?
Correct.
And your drivers are not licensed in any other town?
They're licensed, some are licensed in Seagirt and all of them are licensed in Belmar.
Okay. And in any of those other towns, is there, in your opinion, as much restriction as what we've put forward?
Yes, Seagirt.
This is a copy of the Seeger
Yeah.
ordinance.
And few and far between do we get Seagirt to Seagirt calls. It's usually right out of the area, such as Seagirt to, Seagirt Mall. That's a $6 fare automatically. So that wasn't a huge concern for us. And 9 times out of 10, when you're picking up people from the Parker House, they're going out of town. There isn't a lot of Seagirt to Seagirt. And to be quite frank, I was unaware of the town meeting when that took place. Rightfully so, my boss was very upset with me and I did not go, because I definitely would have brought that up to them as well. Because sooner or later it's going to happen. But here, we have a lot of locals, a lot. That's the majority of our business in the daytime during the week. So, it's a huge concern.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Would anyone else like to speak? Could I have a motion, please, to close the first voice of the public?
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Could I have a motion to open the floor for a public hearing to approve the budget?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Oh, no, this is public hearing. Would anyone like to speak to the budget?
This is for the public, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay.
Were you gonna speak, Colleen?
No, the microphone was on.
Oh, okay. Well, then, can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Patty seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Ordinances, the second reading. Would you read that, please, Rick?
Second reading and public hearing, adoption of ordinance number 08, 2011, an ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights amending Chapter 3 of the revised general ordinances of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights, County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey, entitled Regulations Enforced by the Police Department, creating new section 3.24 and subsequent taxi, auto cabs, and vehicles hired for carrying passengers.
Now, is this also a public hearing?
No, are we gonna
No,
vote on
this is-
adoption of the budget?
That's number 8.
It's not yet.
Okay.
Coming up. This is adopting the taxi ordinance. We introduced it last time?
Yes, second reading, public hearing.
Okay, would anyone like to speak on the, besides the people that already have, on the taxi ordinance? Sure.
John Case, I'm the owner of Swan Taxi, I live in Ivanhoe in Wall Township. There's quite a bit of points that John and also Tanya brought up, but other than the fact of what they said, I'd just like to say I think that they should review this and maybe check out other towns as well. I don't really have too much other to say than that, but they should try to postpone this and look into other avenues too. I would try to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Okay, then I think we're up to actual adoption. Am I correct? Could I have a motion, please, to adopt ordinance number 8, 2011?
I'll make that motion, Mayor,
I'll
but I'd
second
like
it.
to make an amendment.
Need a second.
Oh, wait, Sarah seconded it. Now, discussion? Now.
Thank you. I would like to make an amendment and striking section 11, section B, the fare limit, from the ordinance. To pass the ordinance without section 11, number B, the fare limit.
Page 10.
Yes, page 10,
Okay, so
section 11,
11,
subsection B.
which starts on 9.
So B is deleted,
B would be deleted.
C becomes B, D becomes C.
Correct.
So that has to do with fares.
That would remove the fare limit of $1.50 per mile per person, which would allow them to set their rate.
Does any council member have a question or?
We need a
I
second.
thought I had a second.
There's,
Now
this
we have a motion to amend.
is a
Oh,
motion to amend, yeah.
okay. Can I have a second?
I have a question before we do that. Wouldn't A also apply? It says here, any person, driver, or owner charging in excess of the posted rates.
Well, they're supposed to post their rates in the car.
Okay, so that's their car rates, that's
Right.
not,
That's correct. That's their car rate.
okay. Thank you.
So this is all of
God
section
bless you.
11.
Section 11B.
Section 11B.
Just B is
B.
B.
Just B.
Just B. Anyone else have a comment on this? And can I have a motion, please, to, we had a second, could I have a vote on amending this motion to take out 11, no, yeah, 11B?
I'll make that motion.
It's already
We have a
made.
motion and
It's already
second, we
made.
need a
It's
vote.
on the
We need a
floor.
vote.
Could I have a roll call on that then?
So I'm confused, what are we voting?
We're voting on
amending
amending this ordinance
I got
and taking out on page, section 11,
We're voting on
B.
the amendment, gotcha.
to amend. We're just voting to amend.
Thank you.
May I have a roll call on amending?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Dibber?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mechanico?
Yes.
Mr. Warback?
Yes.
Okay, so now we have an amended ordinance.
I'd like to,
Go ahead.
we're still discussing? I'd like to make a motion to amend as well.
Go ahead.
I'd like to amend to delete on page 6.
John, could you speak into the mic so it gets...
Section, on page 6, section 6. A2, A3. Submit a
Section
complete certificate on
6.
forms requiring that the person has been examined within 60 days of the application is fit for safe operation of the taxi and auto cab.
I didn't get that.
Yeah, John, I can't hear you.
He wants to delete,
On page 6.
On page 6, you want to delete...
Page 6, where it says submit a completed certificate on forms provided from the borough from a reputable physician stating the applicant has been examined within 60 days of the date of the
So that's number
application.
2, 3.
It's
Under number
Number
2,
2, subsection A,
A3.
number 3.
Go ahead.
My motion is to amend to delete that paragraph.
Any discussion on the
Need a
amendment?
second.
I'll
Oh, he
second
needs a second, okay. Any other discussion on this amendment, taking out section 2A3 on page 6?
I kind of have, I work for an insurance company, so take it from where, we're dealing with the livery of other people. My 84-year-old father-in-law lives with us, and he still drives, but as to whether or not, there's no age requirement for a taxi cab driver, right? And,
Well,
There
there
is
is
an
ordinance.
there are
Yeah.
age
21.
requirements?
You gotta be over 21.
minimum, not a maximum.
21, according to your ordinance.
We have a low, not a high. 21, you have to be 21.
You have to be 21, but there's no height,
Difficulty with that?
there's no high.
I'm sorry?
Is there a difficulty with having a 21 age?
I actually have 2 honor roll students that work for me. They're on the local first aid squad in my town, and they should be penalized for not driving if my insurance company accepts them.
Over age 18?
Yes.
But that,
I mean,
that also works
I've
the
never
other
had a
way,
ticket
too.
and they've never been stopped. I mean, I'm sorry. did you
That
say
works the other way too, on older drivers, if your insurance company accepts them. But your insurance company has to accept your drivers,
That's correct.
regardless of their age, so whether they're 21
They
or,
have to check, they're gonna check their abstract, and they have certain guidelines that they have, if they're gonna accept them or not. I've had drivers denied all the time that walk in. That say their abstract is horrible, I get it faxed over to me, I look at it and I agree with them. 6 accidents, 10 points, I mean, who's gonna wanna, hire somebody, I certainly wouldn't.
gotcha.
And anybody that has a DWI, they're not gonna
Right.
give them, a license.
Okay, the motion on the floor is to eliminate 2A3 on page 6. Any other discussion on that?
I just want to qualify that this is just a one-time exam, right? It's not every year. It's just
But-
before
but-
they apply, when their application, 60 days before their application.
But their application is an annual basis.
It's an annual basis, it's an
Every
annual
year.
It's an
license.
annual
It's every
license.
year.
It's an annual license and an annual
Every
physical.
year.
Something could happen from one year to the next, you don't want the
Yeah.
person. You don't just pass physical once and then.
But they have to pass a
Every year.
physical and seeker and get a doc, and they use the same doctor's note?
Probably.
Not if it's
Well, it
more than
doesn't
60
matter.
days.
Well, yeah, if the si-
Not if
Okay,
it's
this has
60
to be
days
done every year.
so, but if Secret already has it on there,
old. As long as it's less than 60 days
As
old.
long as it's less than 60 days, it would be fine.
Any other discussion on the amendment? May I have a roll call on the amendment to eliminate 2A3 on page 6?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia?
no.
Mr. Dibber?
No.
Ms. King?
No.
Mr. Mechanico?
No.
Mr. Warback?
Yes.
Any other amendments?
That
Yes.
motion, that amendment failed.
Right, it failed. Any other amendments?
Yes, Your Honor, I'd like to amend on page 6, paragraph 2A1, to provide that the applicant be of the age of 18 years or older.
Any other discussion on that? Oh, can I have a second, please?
Absolutely
No second?
I'll second it for the discussion purposes.
Okay. Discussion.
Well, I don't understand how it is that 21 years as opposed to 18 years. You've heard from the owner that he has drivers that are qualified. They are on various public safety organizations in the town. I think it's arbitrary.
I don't believe they have enough experience to be taxi cab drivers at 18.
I'm just saying they go save a life, but they can't drive a cab.
Yeah, so they drive a first aid car.
Yeah, they're driving an ambulance.
Right.
But they can't come and pick you up. I mean, they're driving a huge ambulance.
Any other discussion from council? Sarah?
Probably Patty should really address this rather than me, because she's in the insurance business, but I would say this, that pretty much historically, it is a known fact that 18-year-olds, most of the time, have an accident within the first year of their driving. I mean, I've seen it here in town with several teenagers, and I just don't think it's that responsible of an age overall. I'm not saying that there isn't responsible 18-year-olds that fall in that category, but if you take it on a whole, I think it's more risky from that age group, and when you're talking 21 years old, they're starting to get a little bit more responsible. I don't see the necessity to lower that.
Any other discussion on this amendment? May I have a roll call then on eliminating 2 or changing 2A on page 6, 2A1 to 18 instead of 21?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia?
No.
Mr. Dibber?
No.
Ms. King?
No.
Mr. Mechanico?
No.
Mr. Warback?
Yes.
The motion fails. Is there any other amendment?
Well,
Mr. Borback.
Is it possible to entertain the idea of tabling this?
Are you making a motion?
Okay, I would like to make a motion to table it to give the author of this ordinance opportunity to speak with representatives of the local taxi companies that are interested in providing input.
Can I have a second, please?
Your Honor, there's been a motion to adopt the ordinance, and it was seconded, so.
That goes first.
That goes first.
All right.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. All right, we're finished with the amendments? Can I have a motion?
Well, hold on. There's a motion to adopt.
Yeah.
A motion was made
To adopt the amended.
And second.
Okay, and so you're saying that the motion to table is out of order?
There's a motion.
The vote has to be taken on that.
Before a motion to table can be considered? You're saying that under Robert's rules, motion to table is out of
I
order?
defer to the mayor.
No, I think you can vote on tabling it before you actually vote on it. Because if you table it, then you're not going to vote on it.
Right, so.
Because we've done that before. We've tabled.
Mr. Vorback's made his motion to table?
Right.
I'll second.
You seconded. Any discussion on tabling ordinance number 8, 2011?
Well, I just like basically reiterate that gives us the opportunity to have input, because we don't want to create an ordinance that's so obnoxious that it prevents a service that our residents need, namely taxi service. There are seniors who rely on the taxi service. There are people who are responsible who maybe have had too much to drink at a bar and they don't want to drive home. They call a taxi. And frankly, if that taxi service goes away or is highly restricted because we have an obnoxious ordinance, we're doing a disservice to our citizens. Balanced against that is a concern with safety, which is extremely important. And I think having a public-private discussion, the council and private sector discussing this to make a better ordinance is wise.
Any other, John?
I would just say that under the preceding taxi ordinance that we had, that took place. And at the time, the results seemingly were good. Obviously, the police department did not enforce that ordinance. I don't know that the police department's gonna enforce this ordinance either, but, so we could all just be having an academic conversation here. But I do think that we should be speaking to the people who are in the industry before we just start putting together 13-page ordinances,
Okay,
regulating their business.
we have a motion on the table motion to table. May I have a roll call, please? Any other discussion? I'm
I
sorry.
would just like to say that I kind of see this as a safety issue. I mean, nobody has a license already. I mean, both of the individuals that spoke do not have licenses in our town, and we have an ordinance currently on the book. We're licensed in Spring Lake Heights. And I'm just saying that we don't, right now, the problem is we don't police it now. And I just think that if something happens where there's somebody that's not following the proper protocol of picking up or whatever, this ordinance is there so that we can take the necessary, the police can take the necessary, action to.
My only response to that, Ms. Sindé, is that 2 weeks ago, when you repealed the ordinance that was on the books, that was the argument I made then, that maybe before you repeal something, you have the successor ordinance in place, but you all voted to repeal what was in place. So I think it's a little disingenuous and insincere of you to be making that argument now.
Mayor,
Any other discussion?
call the
Mr.
question.
Dibber? Okay.
I agree. Call
May
the
I have a
question.
motion, please, on calling the question? No.
I'll second.
I'll
John seconded.
Oh, okay, he second, I didn't hear him second. All in favor of calling the question?
Aye.
Okay, the
This
thing
is the
that's
motion to
on
table.
is a motion to table. May I have a motion to table, a roll call?
Roll call.
I'm up to it. Got it.
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia?
No.
Mr. Dibber?
No.
Ms. King?
No.
Mr. Mechanico? Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
May I have the motion failed? May I have a motion, please, on ordinance number 8, the amended ordinance number 8, 2011? Pardon?
Let's go roll call.
It's a roll
This is a
call.
roll call.
We already had a motion.
You already had a
Second.
motion and a second.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
We're up to the roll call.
May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brennan?
No.
Ms. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Dibber?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mechanico?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
No.
Ordinance is adopted
The ordinance is adopted.
as amended.
Okay. Second reading and public hearing on adoption ordinance number 9, 2011. Would the clerk read it, please?
Second reading and public hearing, adoption of ordinance number 09, 2011. Capital ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights providing for handicap accessible improvements to Alera Road Park and appropriating $35,662 therefore from the capital surplus fund authorized in and by the Borough of Spring Lake Heights in the County of Monmouth, State of New Jersey.
May I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Would anyone like to speak to this ordinance?
At long last, Your Honor, this is going to provide for the funding of the
Alera Road Park. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor? Did we?
Yes, Your
Okay,
Honor.
could I have a
Close the
roll
public
call,
hearing.
please?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia?
Yes.
Mr. Dibber?
Yes.
Ms. King?
Yes.
Mr. Mechanico?
Yes.
Mr. Vorback?
Yes.
Introduction and first reading of ordinance number 10, 2011. Would the clerk read the ordinance, please, title?
For introduction and first reading, ordinance 10-2011, an ordinance of the Borough of Spring Lake Heights establishing salaries and wages for 2011. Public hearing will be held on May 23rd, 2011.
May I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Could I have a second?
I'll second it, but I'd like to make a comment. Being head of personnel, there's several things in here that I had discussed with our labor attorney, and she was supposed to address them, but unfortunately hasn't had an opportunity. And before we move forward on this, I would like to table this, and hopefully at our next meeting, she will have some input, and we can go forward.
I'll make the
This
second
salary and
motion.
wage ordinance has been out there over
Wait, excuse me, we have a motion, pardon?
I'll second the motion to table.
Is that what you're making a motion to do, is to table?
Yeah, table.
You second it. Now discussion on tabling this motion.
Well, I think it's a smart idea, let's get the input we need.
Everybody's had the salary and wage ordinance.
Ms. King said about labor, she has some issues
Everybody's
with
had
labor.
it. Nobody's called me. I brought it up in several meetings.
Excuse me.
Nobody's gave me one indication, and it's a salary freeze. It's a salary freeze.
Yeah, but
there's no
Ms.
change.
King.
with it.
Let her speak.
It is. I mean, I am livid. This is. How can you, as council people, when I brought this up, it's your duty to bring it to my attention. Sarah, why wouldn't you call me Friday when you got this packet, or Sunday when you read it?
To be honest,
Mr. Warbeck, Mr. Warbeck.
Well, no, I think Ms. King's point is valid. We need more information, let's get do it right instead of rushing it.
Would anyone else like to speak to
I'd
it?
just like to say, if the Labor Council has already opined that there's issues, I think we should hear from what the Labor Council has to say.
Okay, this is on a motion to table, and would anyone else like to speak to it? May I have a roll call, please, on a motion to table?
Mr. Brennan?
Yes.
Ms. Cynthia? Mr. Dibber?
Yes.
Ms. King?
yes.
Mr. Mechanico?
Yes.
Mr. Warback?
Yes.
So the motion is tabled. Okay, this resolution 81, 2011, adoption of the 2011 municipal budget. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Could I have a second, please?
I'll second it.
Okay, any discussion on adoption of the budget?
Yes, Your Honor. I consider this budget to be completely reckless. It's setting up a fiscal nightmare for our town and our townspeople in the preceding years. This council is completely reckless and irresponsible with the way they are using gimmicks to try to pass on the impression that we can have government without additional cost to our taxpayers. Specifically, I'm talking about their use of, the reckless use and exhaustion of our surplus. And I don't know that folks are going to appreciate all of the niceties that go along with the use of surplus in municipal government. But suffice it to say that the surplus that is generated for this year was generated as a result of budgeting 2 years ago. And the surplus that was generated last year was generated as a result of budgeting activities 2 years before that, and so forth. And the trend by this council for the past several years has been to recklessly utilize the budget surplus in a way which has increasingly decreased the amount of surplus which is available for budgeting purposes. What do I mean by that? In 2009, according to the surplus analysis provided to all of you, in 2009 our surplus was at $1,079,828. This year it's estimated at half that amount, $523.93. Of that, only $450,000 of that budget, of that amount, is actually usable, because that's what we have sitting in a cash account. This council wants to use $380,000 of that $450,000, leaving us with a surplus, $380,000 for purposes of funding our government activity, leaving us a surplus of $70,000. Well, you saw that surpluses are important because of emergency purposes. It was an emergency. Fortunately, it was able to be pushed into the our capital account. But we may not be so lucky if we have a heavy winter or something that comes along that's going to require additional funding. Additionally, we have outstanding tax appeals that are going to need to be paid out of, if they are successful. And from what we're hearing from our professionals, they don't even want to defend some of our commercial tax appeals because of the fact that they were done in October 2007 at the height of the market. Those monies are going to need to be paid for potentially out of surplus. 70,000, but the worst part about it is that to use 380 of the 450 means that in 2 years, you're not going to have a surplus that you're going to be able to draw $380,000 out of to fund your government. Surpluses are supposed to be responsible and prudent. $70,000 is outrageously reckless. And anybody who votes for it fails, in my opinion, to properly exercise their responsibility and their oath of office.
Mayor, I object to that comment. I don't think it's the members.
Would you like to speak to this?
No, I'm not.
I don't think it's the members.
I'm not.
I don't think it's his place to bully other council members.
I'm not bullying anybody.
His point of view.
I'm not bullying anybody.
Excuse me,
We
John,
can have disagreement without name calling.
would you let him speak, please? He's speaking his mind. We've all done that. John?
I don't think we need to have name calling or bullying
There's
going
no
up here
name
on the
calling.
dais.
John, would you finish, please?
Yes.
It's a disagreement.
Yes. Additionally, what this council is doing by way of funding the budget this year is cutting the amount that is being utilized for repayment of debt from the general fund. Bear with me for a second while I get those numbers. You're dropping debt repayment $46,025, which is 36% less than what it was last year. What you're doing is you're essentially failing to pay down our debt in a way which is prudent. You're pushing off to the future payment of principal that should be getting reduced now. You're doing the same thing that has gotten the politicians in trouble in Washington and in Trenton. That's on the general fund. Now, with respect to our utility budget, you're utilizing our utility budget right now, our surplus, our operating surplus according to our annual financial statement is $207,000. You're utilizing $195,835 of that, leaving a balance of $12,000 in surplus for our utility budget. You also have failed to address my repeated request to deal with the surcharge that is being imposed on everybody that was created in order to keep our surplus, in order to keep our utility afloat. That $260,000 is continuing into next year. You failed to deal with the problems that are in the utility budget, and you're making it worse by killing the surplus. You're extinguishing the surplus, and you still haven't even dealt with the surcharge. Additionally, on debt service in the utility, you're doing the same thing. You're reducing debt service $31,500, which is 27% less than it was last year. You're pushing off to the future the debt that needs to be repaid.
Are you finished, John?
Yes.
Would anyone else like to speak to the budget?
I have a question.
Butch?
Mr. Brennan.
I'm not answering any questions.
Well, I recall maybe 4 years ago, the council, I'm not sure who was up here,
Not me.
took $100,000 surplus from the utilities and put it in the general fund. That's why we're at this point right now. The utilities was in a mess. So I believe that was done for 3 straight years. They took $100,000 out of surplus. That was reckless. to put in the general fund.
Butch.
Utilities been a mess ever since.
Two wrongs don't make a right.
That's
Killing the surplus in the utility is reckless. Exhausting the surplus in the utility is reckless.
Been saying that for years, and I still believe it. It's one of the reasons I voted to table the salary and wage ordinance. We must do something concerning healthcare benefits.
Okay, but, and I agree, however, I just feel like with your own personal finances, you put money in a surplus, so you can retire or have a nest egg.
But Andy, it's worse than that. The problem with the surplus is this. The surplus that we're utilizing, $380,000. No, 300, it's not a static account. It regenerates each year. And it regenerates based upon the performance, the budgeting performance of 2 years earlier. So what we have right now is 450 that we can utilize for purposes of budgeting, okay? Which is down, it's half of what it was just 3 years ago. But we're using 380,000 for budgeting purposes because we want to keep the level of services up to where we are without passing on any tax increase. I get what's going on. The problem is that in 2 years, since we're gutting the surplus, we're not going to have a surplus of $500,000. We might have a surplus of $100,000. If we have a surplus of $100,000, there's not going to be any to be utilized for purposes of our budget, which means that we need to make up $380,000 someplace.
So is it your contention that we're going broke, or
We're
going to
going
go broke
broke
if we continue this? And you Rich, don't think we are. And I'm just asking, and why don't you think we are?
Again, there will still be a surplus in the account. That does not mean that the surplus won't be regenerated. John's talking about $380,000 as if it just disappears and never comes back. Will it come back at, say, $380,000 all at once? Most likely not. Will some come back? Most likely yes.
How much do you think? Or,
it's hard to say. I can't predict, and neither does John.
Didn't we have a...
No, you don't know how much we cut expenses.
Depends on how much we cut expenses.
But didn't we burn through the, and not you all, you weren't here, burn through the utility surplus and the municipal surplus, essentially, or?
Yes. The
Right?
reason why the two night, the reason
I'm just asking.
Look, there were two options that I put forward. I put one forward using less surplus and one using
Having a tax
as much
increase.
surplus as we can. It's a tight budget. It's
Yeah.
going to be, and we made it through last year. We still had a little bit of surplus, not a lot, nothing to write home to mom about. And we're gonna have less next year. It's something that you have talked about, and I was concerned.
Okay, are you worried about it?
No,
No.
not
Okay.
that worried.
Hopefully you are, John.
Okay. I mean,
I'm making a prediction. In 2 years,
John was
we
worried
are
last
gonna
year.
have-
We had a surplus last year.
in 2 years,
We need to make smart decisions, get forward, not spend money on petitions and attorneys and everything else, and do the work of the, smart, fine.
Okay.
Smart-
All right, thank you.
Smart government.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Would anyone else like to speak? I have a motion to close the second portion of the public.
Fran, before you close it,
Oh,
one thing, I would like to know, Elizabeth, how was England?
how was the wedding?
How was the wedding?
That's new business.
That's new business.
Would you come up to the microphone, please?
Oh, you have pictures? All right, we'll have to see.
Very
them.
good.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned at 9:24, not bad.